Our economy here in the United States is in free fall. As a percentage of GDP, we are contracting at the fastest pace ever.
This week's special with Miles Franklin Precious Metal Investments. 2021 Type 2 American Silver Eagles for only $7.25 over spot. Call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We have a returning guest who is well anticipated by our viewers. This is Greg Mannarino. He's the founder of TradersChoice.net. He joins us this Monday, September 13th, 2021. Greg, thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while. I missed you. I missed all you people. So I'm very happy to be here.
We have a blizzard of questions that were submitted. I made the incautious step a day in advance of putting out a call for questions for you. Only 113 questions waiting. So I have to be extremely selective. People, please be understanding if we didn't get to your question. But you and I, before we got on, were just discussing about unprecedented encroachments on people's freedom of speech. And one of the examples of that is people being deplatformed. Could you talk to us about what your position is on that? Because until, I don't know, sometime late last year at least, maybe even part of this year, you were quite active. I mean, you were posting every hour or more on Twitter and other places. And what's your current status of your presence on social media and why?
Well, you will not find me anywhere. It started with LinkedIn. I got kicked off of that for posting, I guess, inappropriate things, and that got followed up by Twitter. So after that, I said, you know what? I'm done. I am done with social media. If you can't go on a social media outlet and say what's on your mind, well, then what's the point? I'm not out there just because I think it's fun or anything like that. No, I was at least out there on social media because I was trying to get a message out to people, and obviously we can't do that anymore. So I don't see the point of it. And again, I was initially very upset. I really was when I couldn't believe that I got booted from LinkedIn. I actually couldn't even believe it. And then Twitter, I could kind of believe, but not LinkedIn. So, and that was it. That started the cascade of events for me. And I tell people, look, share my work because you will not find me anywhere except for shows like yours, which I heard, you're one of the only shows I do. I think you probably know that. I kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm kind of selective with who I want to be with, only because, again, I was doing a lot of interviews, like almost every day. It burned me out. Not that I'm not graciously, happy that people want me on their shows, but I just couldn't do it. It became too much for me. So now, we've been together for a long time, you and me, long. And so, we're going to keep this thing going. But you won't find me on social media. You're rarely going to see me on a show. I don't do these anymore. So it's just this and my site, TradersChoice.net or my YouTube blog. That's it. So far, my website's still there, hasn't been taken down. YouTube, I'm very cautious as to what I say. They block words. They block statements. If they catch certain things, they won't even allow you to publish your video. So I've had this happen to me several times with YouTube. So I had to go back, redo the entire video, and replace certain words and phrases that they don't want people to hear. It's like this. The internet is being whitewashed of all kinds of things. It's insane to me, really, to be a part of it. Because again, I'm out here like you. We got to be very careful what we say. This is crazy. Where are we? What planet is this? I don't know. What world? It's just too much for me. So, I've learned to kind of sidestep those little landmines there. And, I'm not even going to say the words to do with what's going around.
Yeah, these are the words we can't say. Never mind. Okay. I think people kind of know what a lot of the things are that we can't say. If we could talk for a moment about, in addition to having a financial background that you're perhaps currently most known for, you also have a medical background. Prior to that, you're a man of many talents, and you have connections in both of those worlds we were talking just before we got started, and it's related to what we're talking about now, people walking away from or distrusting the main story that we're being told, what we're being guided to believe by what we're being told and what we're being guided to do. We've been talking about people who would rather walk away from their careers, walk away from their employment, rather than submit to a procedure that they do not want to take part in against their will. This is when these kind of things happen. First of all, you have some specific examples of that in your life, but then the way that it's being, even that development is being presented or spun to make sure that people don't understand what really is happening. One of the things we just saw in our local news channel was hospitals nearing capacity, the medical system being overwhelmed by the spikes in cases, that kind of thing. And that's a very interesting way because when we walk into restaurants around here where they can't get wait staff, there could be 3/4 of the tables empty, and they say, yeah, we're not taking any reservations. We don't have any availability. You look around, the place is 1/4 full, and they say they don't have any availability. Then they explain, well, it's because we can't get anybody to come to work, and therefore we can't seat anymore tonight. And yet that's not being told on the medical front as well. Can you give us a little update on what you know in that area?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Well, we're finding out that doctors and nurses are walking off of the job because of these are people who have studied medicine for sometimes a decade and worked in the field for a very long time. They're walking off. They don't want to get the jab. I think I can say that, at least I hope so. They don't want it. They understand how this thing is actually working, what it's doing to people. So they're these are medical people that feel the same way as I do, and I would not, I'm not vaccinated. I have no plans on getting this thing, and they're working very, very hard to get that in every body that they possibly can here, and I find that disturbing here. It goes back to this society that we're about. You can't share information anymore. If you choose one thing, they're doing this by design too. The divide and conquer mechanism has always worked. They're putting people against each other. I had a real, very sad, I think, argument with a very, very good friend of mine over this whole thing. And that's what it's doing. It's putting people against each other. It's very, very sad. But you're right. They're covering this whole thing up. They're not allowing people to know what's really going on, that people are refusing this thing. Medical staff in droves refusing to get in this thing. And, it's all being, spun in a different kind of way. And the internet is being whitewashed. It's an incredible thing. And that goes back to what I was saying. You and I, we got to be real careful about what we even say. People, they want to control the flow of information, and it's pretty scary to me.
Part of what you've been getting out there for the last several years, I've been following your work for a long time, but in the last several years, you've really just got laser focused. In fact, it's really cute. You've got the banner for your post that you do put on your website where it says, "Ban censored over the target." The more you hover over the target, the more of a target you become. And so if we could, that's a question here from Jay Conrad, who says, how did you come to and reach the conclusion that the Fed would be the lender and buyer of last resort and end up buying it all, which is a central theme of a lot of the messages that you've put out there for the last couple of years. You were the only one ignoring the calls for repeated market crashes by others based on what at the time would be considered an outlandish stance. What set of facts or analyses gave you the confidence to know that the Fed banksters would get away with this epic crime spree without any accountability or opposition from those who are responsible for oversight and the rule of law?
Well, it's very simple. I study the system. I'm involved in it. I mean, I know everybody. I talk to these people like on the big banks. I know most of the big banks out there. I know people that work there. Okay. So I share everything. This is not inside information. Whatever I hear from, Wall Street is a, place where people like to talk. And so what I do is I talk to everyone and I share this on my blog. I want everyone to really understand what's happening, how twisted the system is. With regard to the Federal Reserve, it's very simple. Their goal since their inception one day was to become the lender and buyer of last resort, to own it all. That's what they're doing right now. This is a global takeover. I don't know another way to put it. I've been saying this to people for the longest time. They are the ones pulling the strings. They are the puppet masters. They control the cash. They control the narrative, period, the end. And they're not done. This everything we're seeing right now, none of it is by accident. This has all been planned out many, many decades ago. We're just seeing the side effects of it right now. And this is going to get even worse moving forward. The strength of a central bank resides in its ability to continue to issue debt, period. If we were able to take that power away, honestly, if we were able to stop the Federal Reserve from creating a single dollar, just $1 out of thin air, it's over for them. But they must, and they're going to continue to do this, and they're going to have our politicians, continue to say, okay, we need to borrow money. We need to put money towards this thing. Insolvent companies are going to get money. Sectors of the market, industries are going to get bailed out. Wars, a continuation of conflict, making sure the Middle East stays destabilized, everything to continue to borrow money from the future. This is all an orchestrated plan. There's nothing that is going on by accident here. So if we understand the end game, what's the final solution? What do the central banks want, since they run the entire world here? They want to continue to inflate, like I've been explaining for the longest times, for years. I don't know, the same narrative. It's not changed. They're going to continue to inflate and inflate and inflate some more. I've been telling people that. And a lot of people are like, oh, Greg, you're wrong. They can't go on forever. Well, it's going to go on until it can't. And at that point, we're going to get this whole new system is already being set up right under our noses, a two-tier society, a feudal system. All the things I've warned about what happened like a decade ago is happening right now. But it's going to become more profound. Our economy here in the United States is in free fall. As a percentage of GDP, we are contracting at our fastest pace ever. You don't hear that on the mainstream, do you? No. People are not allowed to know that. And the driver is the central banks of the world, none more so than the Fed, who's continuing to buy, from what we know of, $100 billion at a minimum. Let's think about this. Minimum. This is their bottom line. Every month, $100 billion worth of treasuries, $40 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities. There's no cap. They can buy anything they want with impunity. There's no oversight. And all this nonsense about tapering and this, it's just not going to happen. The Fed is not done buying assets. The central banks of the world are not done buying assets. And that's how they're collectively taking over everything. They're the real government. They are the world government that we've been warned would come for a very, very long time. It's the central banks. They are the most corrupt, evil, and criminal organizations on the planet. And we have no representation here in the United States. There's just none. There's not one member of Congress wants to drag Fed Chair Powell before a committee and have him explain himself. Oh, inflation is contained. Are you kidding me? He said it wasn't widespread. This is not true, and it's going to get a lot worse as long as the Fed continues to run their inflation creation machine. And that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to issue debt through one door, buy it back through another, continue to buy assets. Not going to stop. So we need to stay on the right side of it. This is why I've been explaining to people. You want to know where the market's going to go, the stock market? All you got to do is look at 4 factors. 4. Okay. Number 1, what's going on in the debt market? Is the Fed continuing to buy assets? Yeah. How can we tell they're doing that? Look at the 10-year yield. The Fed cannot just say they're going to keep rates low. They have to get into the market and buy assets. So watch that 10-year yield. It's the benchmark. If the 10-year yield remains where it is, goes lower or stays in a range, the stock market really cannot go anywhere else but higher. You got the dollar index, or the Dixie, which is the relative value of the dollar versus other currencies. As long as that remains weak, okay, the market loves that. Not good for consumers, great for the stock market. Crude oil being propped up. It has no business being here. And I've been explaining to people that crude oil is the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex. When they prop up crude oil, what does that do? Boost the energy sector, boost the financial sector. These investment banks are leveraged beyond their eyeballs in crude, so they keep propping that up. That props up the entire stock market. And then the 4th element is the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. As long as it keeps growing, I mean, it's insane. It's got nowhere to go but higher. Again, what are they doing? This is by design. It's going to push the stock market higher. It's distorted. It's obviously going to correct or crash on the biblical scale. That's what I've been saying at one point. But we can stay ahead of that curve by watching those four dynamics, watching that 10-year yield. There is going to be a moment where that 10-year yield spikes at an uncontrolled pace when people are running for the hills to get out of the debt market. And that's going to put pressure on stocks. That cash is going to leave the debt market. It's going to leave the stock market and just going to flow into other assets. And in my view, and I've been steadfast on this for forever, is it's going to go into commodities. It's going to go into suppressed assets. I also believe it's going into cryptocurrencies. So for me, and for people that follow my work, I think I got them covered from every single possible angle. I'm telling them to, they should be in this market, taking advantage of this fakery that's going on here. Maybe owning a large cap company that pays a dividend, trading this market. I put everything on my website, how to play the positions here. Also for the longer run, owning physical assets, gold, silver. Also, if you are so inclined, hold some cryptocurrency too. I'm not saying people should be all in on cryptos, and nor is it for everyone, but it's a space where I think people should have exposure. Anyway, you got to cover all the bases here. And that's really what I'm doing with my own money. I'm putting, and I share what I am doing with everyone. And whether it's right or wrong, I tell people, make up your own minds. Go out there and do your own research. And if what I say makes sense, well, then great. If it doesn't, then it's not for you. And that's fine. I'm not saying I know everything. I clearly don't. But I do study this stuff around the clock. I sleep and I dream about it. That's how twisted it is. But I don't know. It's a very unique environment. I find it exciting to a certain degree, but I want people to understand it, at least at a relatively deep level. And, maybe not to the degree that I do, because I can't imagine anyone's as crazy as I am to sit here and immerse myself in it around the clock. But understand what's happening and realize that none of this is by accident. None of it.
There's so many questions here about inflation versus deflation, or is it going to be inflation until we get a deflationary spike in the yield? Could you just address that question about there seems to be this tug of war, two different camps of so many people claiming we're in a deflationary economic collapse, and you keep pointing out the Fed is going to do nothing but inflate as far as the eye can see until they can't. Can you just clarify that? How long you see from a sequence of events, what kind of things will cause an end to that inflation and switch us over to deflation?
This is how I see it. And again, this is something I've explained for forever here. I've said specifically that we haven't seen anything yet with regard to central banks inflating. And I've said this for years and years, and this has proven to be 100% true. We're now seeing inflation spike at its fastest rate ever. And it's not contained, or it's very widespread. Listen to Yellowstone Powell, and he's going to tell you the opposite, but it's not true. And the Fed is ignoring the issue by design here. Their power, again, resides in their ability to issue debt. The more debt they issue, the more powerful they become. This goes back to the whole narrative, which was so laughable during President Trump's tenure. Oh, he's bankrupting the Fed. He's getting them to print money. And no, it's an impossibility. All it was doing was allowing the Fed to become stronger. Every single dollar the Federal Reserve is allowed to create out of thin air or called upon by a president or Congress to pull into existence makes them stronger, not weaker. It gives them more control. I don't know who was spinning that idea. Maybe it was like QAnon nonsense that was out for a while. And I told everyone they were going to be wrong, and they were. No surprise to anyone, I think. But anyway, so look, I think we can expect the inflationary pressures to continue moving forward as the Fed continues to buy assets, as the Fed continues to suppress rates, as the Federal Reserve continues to rob anyone blind who's got an interest earning account, even a high yield earning account. This mechanism deliberately forces cash into risk assets and pulls it away from things it should be going into. For example, we're watching the stock market, record high, and we're seeing pressure on precious metals and pressure on cryptocurrencies, which, again, the environment is going to change. We're going to go from risk on to risk off at one particular time. That's why we have to cover all our bases now. You can't sit here and be in only one, let's say one asset. I know a lot of people are. And if they had to choose just one, for me, it would be physical silver. I tell people that all the time. But if you have the ability to be diversified, so you can capitalize on what's going to come on down the pike, because we know this is not sustainable. We know the end game. The end game is simple. The end game is to cause an implosion of the current system, and that is going to happen via the debt market. The debt market hyperbubble is out of control. It's way out of control, and no bubble can be sustained indefinitely. It's going to eventually burst, and it's going to be by design too. This is not by accident. So when we get that implosion in the debt market, okay, that's going to destroy the stock market, and wealth is just going to move from one group of people to another. So, and then I believe we're going to get a whole new system, something I think you and I have even spoken about in the past, a completely digital system. The cash that we have in our wallets. I don't even know anybody who carries cash around anymore. I don't even have a single dollar in my wallet right now, not one. People, what do we do? We swipe everything, debit. It's really the system already is like that. Sometimes I feel really bad. Like, for example, I'll pull up to a street corner and there's some poor guy out there holding up a sign. I don't even have $1 in my wallet to give him. I don't really know people who are using cash anymore. We're really moving in that direction to this cashless society. So to me, look, I see this all sounds bad, and it is, but it's also a way that having an understanding of this allows us to stay on the right side, allows us to capitalize on the things around us, because we're not going down. No one that I know, none of my lions, they're not going to lay down like a sheep and be sheared by the system like most people are. Most people are letting the system destroy them, and I'm not doing that. I refuse to let it happen to myself, and I refuse to let it happen to anyone that follows my work. That's it, pretty much.
Very good. And looking ahead, people are asking, and I'm trying to coalesce a whole bunch of questions here. Malarkey says, Greg continues to say the Federal Reserve has things in store for us we cannot imagine, and if we think it's bad now, we ain't seen nothing yet. What does Greg think will happen?
Well, more of what we have now. We're going to start to see more controls, more curbs on freedoms and liberty. We already all have become one nation under surveillance. All this is going to get a lot worse moving forward. We're going to watch our freedoms disappear. They're also going to throw things at us like this whole global shutdown of the economy. That was also by no accident. They had to do it to finish what they started, which is to become the lender and buyer of last resort. Think about it. They shut down the global economy, and what happened to the stock market? It went higher. Record high. We watch small businesses get shuttered globally, not just here in the United States. We had Great Depression levels of unemployment. What happened? Stock market went higher. It's a twisted thing to see. So I tell people, expect the unexpected. Things that I believe are going to be thrown at us, and who knows, they might throw another. Look what they're doing now. We had the first episode of this thing that's going around right now. Then we had these new variants coming out. I told people, expect them. You're going to start to see more variants, and more variants that are worse, much worse than the other ones, that can circumvent all the immunity that you might have. And that's another thing. Look what they're doing here, going back to a medical background. So they're mandating this for even people who have had it and who are immune. They're not asking for a blood assay. You could go to your doctor and see if you are immune. A lot of people have had these things, didn't even know it, and now are immune. They have the antibodies, but they don't care. If you go to your employer and say, look, I have a blood assay here, I am immune, they don't care. They want that thing in your body. And that is very, very disturbing to me. Again, they want to see what they can get away with, how far they can push people and how they're going to do it. And how they are doing it is by keeping people afraid. Make people afraid of one thing, just one, and you can control their minds. So it's fear. And I think that's another thing we're going to see a lot more of moving forward, more control by a fear mechanism here. Probably other invisible enemies like this thing going around here. And who knows what else? Nothing would surprise me that they're going to do to try to establish control, because that's what this is all about. They don't want free thought. Forget about it. You're not allowed to even think for yourself. Free action. Oh no, you're not allowed to act on anything that you might think would be good for you. and free movement, you can't go anywhere. You can't even go to work these days. So free action, free thought, free movement, all the things our forefathers built this nation on. So they don't want it anymore.
Yeah, in addition to all of those, free speech, and that's where we started out talking about people getting deplatformed and having to self-edit themselves in order not to get deplatformed.
That would fall under free thought. To me, you're not even allowed to think something and then say it. You can't do it. They want it all. They want full control. So expect it.
Within the realm of investment, and again, we're not giving personalized investment advice here, but there's about a half a dozen different questions here that treat with the topic of precious metals versus mining stocks. As you've talked about the equities market being in a boom cycle, but metals being under pressure, where do you come down on mining stocks and royalty stocks, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I get this all the time. I don't own any of them. All right, I don't know, and I'm not saying that they're bad investments, but I don't own them. If I'm going to own a stock, I want to be paid to own it. Okay, I want to own a dividend-paying stock, and I want to own a large cap stock. So the reason why I don't touch on things like that is because I only talk about things that I am doing. I don't want to even speculate on a lot of things. Like, as you know, I've been buying gold and silver for I don't even know how long now. It's a very, very long time. Cryptocurrencies, I started really getting into it, I guess around Bitcoin 3,000, maybe a little lower than that. With regard to, owning large cap stocks, actually, that's kind of a recent thing too. Just over the last several years, I said, you know what? The market's only going up. I'm going to start buying large caps that pay dividends. And it's been the right spot to be in, and it's going to continue to be until it doesn't. But how do we know? We don't have to guess. We're going to watch the 10-year yield. Keep your eye on the debt market. That's the key. I mean, there were those 4 elements I spoke about. The debt market is the key. It's always been the key to the market. And that's why the Fed has chosen to take the debt market and hyperinflate it and allow this multiple bubble environment to manifest itself. We have hyper bubbles to the top, and we have inverse bubbles too. Risk-off assets are on sale right now. Things like gold, silver, and even cryptos, in my view. Anyway, that's my take on it. It's not going to change. It's been this way for an extremely long time, and I really feel it's the right way to be playing this.
The other question is along the lines of preparedness. We've touched on this before in the past. People wonder about people who live in large metropolitan areas. Las Vegas, where you live, is one of them. Also in the desert southwestern U.S., where there's this big drought. Some people say it's part of the 500-year drought cycle, that sort of thing. Do you have any concerns, or would you think that people should have concerns if they are currently living in a high population density area or in an area of limited resources like water, as far as what their preparedness situation is and what they might want to consider doing about it?
Absolutely, they should be concerned. There's no doubt about it. I'm concerned out here. I'm watching what's happening to Lake Mead out here, and it's a crazy situation here. We understand that there's this major drought going on here. I mean, in Vegas, it's extreme, but what are they doing? They're building and building and building and building. It's frankly unbelievable. But people are moving here like crazy, especially from California. We've had an influx. Most of my neighbors are from California. They sold their houses over there at like an exorbitant price, and they come here and they're buying property. But it's a concern. I don't think people realize how severe it is. But I think it's a problem we're going to have to deal with moving forward. I would not be surprised to see a mass migration east, at least at one particular point here in the United States. And this is a global phenomenon too. But it's a frightening prospect. Do I think there are solutions? I would like to think so. But I don't actually know what they're trying to do about it. I wish I was a little more educated on that. Maybe it's something I'll do in another life or something along those lines. But I think people need to take action and be prepared for whatever may come down the pike. Understand your current situation, evaluate it, think about a worst case scenario, and then prepare for it. That's really it. Always have the high ground. So you're ready for whatever comes down the pike. That's all I can say with regard to that.
There's a question, kind of an end game question here from Slick Willie. Greg, seeing that we've experienced gold confiscation in the past, the Dodd-Frank bill for bail-ins, the IRS monitoring all our accounts with balances of $600 or greater, does it really matter what assets you have when they come for them through forced taxation or by outlawing them?
Well, look, you could sit down and choose to do nothing, or you could try to at least do something about it. Look, they can do whatever they want to. They could come to my house and take my house and take everything else I have. I mean, I suppose in a worst case scenario, at that point, we have to be ready to defend ourselves, and take action against a tyrannical system. I mean, that's our obligation, I think. As supposedly a free people, for which we are not free at all, we're supposed to be able to take power away from those that are trying to steal our liberties right from under our noses. But it seems like people are submitting to it. So, is it worth it? Look, I try to say to myself, okay, are they going to come for my physical assets, gold, so whatever I might have, and come from my bank account? Well, I don't really know. But I guess anything is possible. But what do? Do you just don't do anything? Do you sit tight and just live in that type of a fear? No. I think you got to at least take action. Get yourself in the spots you think are the right ones. Maybe wrong, but again, try to get yourself in those spots that you feel are right at the time. Arm yourself. In my view, I think people need to be able to defend them. Get together with like-minded people. I mean, there's so many things that we can do. Join a fraternity, a group of people that maybe you can rely on here. Make friends in your own neighborhood. Say hello to your neighbors. What are they doing? They're trying to divide us, so don't let them do that. Get together with like-minded people. If you're online, you can do that. If they cut off the internet, I guess you're dead. But it would be better to get together with people that you can in your immediate area. That are, think along the same lines as you do, or even if you agree to disagree, but understand that we need each other. And I've been pushing that for the longest time. And I tell everyone every single Friday, love each other, care about each other, be charitable. This is what we need to do, because again, this is the new world order, bro. Something you and I have knew was coming, and a lot of people for a long time. A one world government. This is the central banks. Has nothing to do about anything else. It's the banks. You see, they lurk in the shadows. The central banks are they're the root cause of everything we're seeing, and it's all been thought out. All of it. This is so deliberate and so devious, and they got people convinced that these things are just happening by chance. That nothing is by chance. This scamdemic. That's not by chance. This was all planned out a long time ago. We all knew it was coming. This has been foretold to us as well. Did we know it was going to happen at that exact moment? No. They chose the tone, but they choose everything. They choose it all. We, unfortunately, have to live in their world in many ways and make it work for ourselves.
For people like you and for me who are trying to keep the message going out there to try to wake up more people who haven't heard about other than what they're hearing in the mainstream media that is barraging them with fear about certain situations that they are reacting to, we take risk of our being able to continue doing that. You found that out on social media. We've been, demonetized many times on when we get too close to touchy topics, and we've been doing that more. Things about liberty and freedom are hot topics in this current environment. Folks, just so you're aware, you can support us so that we're not subject to that corporate censorship. Greg, if you could let people know where they can specifically get plugged in with your work and support you.
Oh, just my website, traderschoice.net. Everything you need is right there for you. I set up everything for you, how you can follow the debt market, the dollar index, charts, graphs, a free chat room, get together with like-minded people, like I said. It's not too hard, but we really do need each other in this time more than ever. I think we got to understand that.
And folks, you can support us at both patreon.com/reluctantpreppers as well as paypal.me/reluctantpreppers. I think you've got a paypal.me as well.
On my YouTube blog, but yeah, I would rather people, even for me, look, man, pay it forward. If you're benefiting from my information, just donate to a charity you believe in. That's important to you. We got to support each other. We really do. I don't know another way to put this. If we all got together and established that kind of a mindset, I think this whole world would be a better place, but what are they doing? Divide and conquer, divide by anything, by now if you have vax versus not vax, by your color, by your religion, by your skin color, by your age, by your sex, whatever they're going to do. They want you, they don't want us together. They want us apart so they can control us all. It's terrible.
And folks, if you don't want to miss a single episode with Greg or any of our guests, and including any links that they offer, make sure you get on our free newsletter list. That's at libertyandfinance.com. Put your name and email address on the left-hand side, click submit. You'll get a confirmation email you're in. It's all free. Every single interview that we produce and all the links that our guests provide. We've been speaking with Gregory Mannarino. He is the founder of traderschoice.net, and he's joining us today. Greg, thanks as always on behalf of all of our viewers for joining us here on Liberty and Finance.
Great to be here. Thanks.
This week's special with Miles Franklin Precious Metal Investments. 2021 Type 2 American Silver Eagles for only $7.25 over spot. Call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.